What do you think about between the two communities, Muslim and Jews? Which one concerns you more?
Jews, for sure.
Tell me why.
More powerful. They're more powerful.
So,
pretty much. You don't need to say more than that. I could, but let's see Mr. Fuentes analyze it.
More powerful in a way, you're talking the fact that they have money, finance, Hollywood. Is that what you're
yeah, they have more position in American society.
And how do you think they got that?
I think they got it because they are extremely connected. They're a transnational entity. You know, this is how the Rothschilds got started. Their superpower is that they
The international Jew, more or less,
live everywhere, and they have their Jewish identity supersedes their local identity. So a Jewish person in America or in Germany or in France or in the UK, they can all talk to each other and work together.
Do you think that's a bad thing?
Not in and of itself. It is detrimental for America, though.
Is it detrimental, though? Because, I'm a Syrian, right? Mm-hmm. And I would...
Nick says this later on. I'm not just saying it because he said, I agree. When I saw it, I thought, okay, that's what I think. It's not entirely detrimental because traditionally they're intelligent and well-educated, hardworking, the Jews. So they create things, okay? Inventions and so on. Art. I'm a Kiss fan. Horses for courses. Some of you might not like Kiss, but I'm into hard rock, heavy metal. Kiss is one of my favorite bands. Spielberg, so on. There's propaganda in his films, but still, he's made some good stuff. Yeah, so they can be a positive force, but anyway, let's see what Nick says.
Wish Assyrians were more like this. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you why I relate to them. We don't have a country. Assyrians used to have a country. We used to be the first warriors. We were written about in the Bible. You read it all over the place. The history we had, the things we invented. And then we became a little cocky. And God came in and was like, listen, man, relax, Assyrians. You ain't going to come and be the king of the jungle. It's me. Yeah. And you hear the stories about that they built the tower to go all the way to the top because we are Assyrians and, and then we failed. It's like, no, look at you now. No one knows who Assyrians are. You don't even have a country, right? We know the land in Iraq or wherever you are. You don't have it anymore. I think when a community becomes too cocky, the man upstairs is going to handle that himself, right?
Well, again, with that freaking word, anti-Semitism, it's a gaslighting term. 99% of the times it's used for to gaslight, but is it going to be anti-Semitic to say that that's what God did to the Jews as well? Okay, they rejected Christ. They said, the people that pushed for his crucifixion said, okay, let our children, let our descendants take the bad karma. Okay, I'm paraphrasing. But that's pretty much what happened. I believe that's historical. All right? Otherwise, it wouldn't have been written down in that way. So that's how these things work. If you do something that, like if you deliberately kill an innocent man for political reasons and so on, okay, when he was in fact innocent, or in any case did not deserve the ultimate punishment, okay, and the guy says, Pontius Pilate says, look, I don't find any fault. I don't know if this is right. No, do it. Crucify him and let the sin or the bad karma be carried over to our children and their children. Guess what? Look at the subsequent 2,000-year history of the Jews and look what happened to them. So there you go.
Right. But in a sense, when you see they went from a small community to have this much influence, isn't that almost impossible for them to pull off? Like, isn't that... So it either produces one of two things. I'm not intimidated. I'm not a guy that is envious or jealous or, oh my God, that guy's richer than me. That guy's this guy's... I'm not. I want to see what they did and what worked for them. For example, To me, when I think about Jews, I think about Mormons, I think about Scientologists. I used to have an office where half the office was all Scientology, and I learned all these phrases, assist, or, I went to their church and so Dianetics and L. Ron Hubbard and what he would say when you get a headache, you do this, and all these weird extras. I'm like, oh, interesting. How much money did we give? $200,000. Why'd you give that? But let me tell you, those guys that were in, they had each other's back. It was a fraternity that you wish family members were like this, right? I think Scientologists have it maybe more than Jews. So I think
I've experienced this myself, by the way. I've seen it. And that's how they are. Pretty admirable.
Jews will bite each other a little bit, not as much. And then Mormons have each other's back. Of course, there's a falling out as well where people come out and they'll talk about God makers or, what Gordon B. Hinckley, and I've read all of that stuff from over the years. But
the Mormon theology, though, is completely insane.
What's wrong with them winning at the highest level?
Well, I agree with you that it is remarkable, and it is actually ominous how much they've achieved. Here's the problem, though. America's an open society. The premise of this country is it's self-government.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, that's what it is. Too open for its own good.
Government of, by, for the people. There's a egalitarian idea that we are all citizens, and our government is going to be comprised of the citizenry of America. That's deeply embedded in who we are and in our government and our whole system. And take me, for example. I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish. The Italians were very much like this when they immigrated to America. They had in Chicago what they called the outfit, which was the mafia, and they looked out for each other. And when my grandfather died on my mom's side, I believe my grandmother got a loan from the outfit. And they would come by every month or whatever, and they'd bring a fruit basket, and they'd look after her, and they provided financially.
Was it Spilatra's group? Do you know the history of it, or was it Tony Spilatra?
I don't know who it was specifically.
Okay, got it.
But so, these are some of the stories I would hear growing up from my mom and my grandmother.
So think about, at that time, how many people were against Italians at that time?
Yeah, well, everyone does this, of course. In-group preference, okay? You're going to look after your own. But when it becomes problematic is that when there's only one ethnicity, one foreign country that very specifically has got its hands all in the military-industrial complex and in politics in general, and heavily interferes or outright controls foreign policy as it pertains to the Middle East. All right, because they're perpetually afraid of Israel getting wiped off the map by places like Iran or whatever. I'm sure the threat is real, but why should Rome 2.0, America, have to carry that burden? All right, you probably wouldn't if it wasn't forced to, hence why AIPAC exists and so on, you understand?
How many people didn't like Italians in New York because...
So what I'm saying is basically, we understand all the intelligent people who point this stuff out, who say anti-Semitic things, translation, call Jews out. We get that if the Greek Americans were in a similar position of, let's say, the nation of Greece did not exist, we probably would have been doing similar things, to do all we can to secure our own nation again, after however many hundreds of years of not having one, and also to protect it against, in our case, it would have been against Turkey. Okay, our Muslim threat is Turkey. So I get it, but please, the people who use this bullshit term anti-Semitism against people like Nick and so on, please understand that we also have a right to just call it like we see it. I mean, all right, you do your thing, but we have a right to say, no, we are not going to send the young boys in Iraq to die, to protect Israel, more or less. All right.
Do you know Bank of America was first called Bank of Italy?
Maybe you can hear the cat in the background. Slightly. Oh, the cat in the room. sort of complaining. I don't know what it wants.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So can you pull up, Rob, was Bank of America first Bank of Italy? If I'm wrong, it is what it is. I think Bank of America was originally Bank of Italy, and everybody used to, yes, the Bank of America was originally founded in Bank of Italy in 1904 to an Italian-American in San Francisco, and financial needs of Italian immigrants and other underserved people. The bank eventually merged with another institution to form Bank of America and changed its name to Bank of America, right? Mm-hmm. The tellers were Italians. You know, they would give small little loans, $10, $4, $5 to them. And some people were not supportive of that. They're like, what are Italian immigrants doing here? You guys are becoming too much power in New York. We're not happy about this. So there was some of that going on 100 years ago.
And that's what I'm saying.
Well, all the tribes have a tendency to do this, to look after their own. No one says that it's not natural that the Jews also do it. He says that the Italians don't use the military-industrial complex to send American soldiers to die in Italy, okay? Unlike a lot of the Zionist American Jews do, all right?
Is that did exist, and then what happened eventually is that Italians assimilated. Eventually, these groups, these ethnic advocacy groups, were broken up, if you could call the outfit that, or the mob of New York, and then Italians assimilated. And when I grew up, I saw myself as American. I didn't see myself as Italian-American. I just saw myself as American. And I think that, you know, when you see Jewish people working together, I don't think there's anything wrong with that inherently. And I agree with you. It's like a superpower. It's actually admirable in some ways to look out for each other.
It is.
But if society becomes, American society in particular, a place where every group is ganging up, well, we're the whites, we're the blacks, we're the Jews, we're the then I think
that's what I call multicultural shithole.
America starts to come apart, and it turns into kind of like a bit of a politicized race war. And I think that I
experienced that in Melbourne, Australia, and they say that apparently Australia prides itself in saying that it's the country that's the most successful with multiculturalism, that they've done it right. I don't know. I mean, maybe there were not all-out race wars and outright hatred between the 5 billion tribes that are trying to coexist in Melbourne, but basically everybody's self-ghettoized. It just happened organically. I mean, there was, some of you, maybe some people might come across this that have lived there that know the suburbs. A suburb called Springvale. That's the Chinese place. It's pretty much 90%, almost 100%. It's just Chinese people. Because what happens is a couple of Chinese people move there first, and a few of their relatives do so as well, and then some others, and it keeps going. And it's like, well, let's go there because so and so lives on that street. Because people prefer to live near their own because it feels safer, and homogeneity is a natural instinct that we have. So there were areas. There was an area, Oakley, which was primarily Greek. There were other areas that were heavily Italian, and so on. And that applied for every one of the dozens and dozens of ethnic groups. And nobody forced that on us. It was an organic self-ghettoizing phenomenon, which I'm sure happens everywhere, and it would happen everywhere organically. I don't know that a 5 million strong city would be a very happy place to live in, or just conducive to happiness, to meeting friends, for dating and so on. Okay, so most people, or a lot of people, want to date within their race only. You're in a major city with 5 million people, but the dating pool of women or men, depending on if you're a man or woman or whatever your preferences are, whatever, they diminish incredibly. Melbourne has got a very big Greek population, but I feel bad for other people. Let's say if you're Russian or whatever, and there's only, 10,000 or 50,000 of your people in a city that's 5 million. Okay, population of 5 million. So that would be what? Is that 10%? 5 million, 500,000. Yeah, I think 50,000 would be 10% of 5 million. It's not 1%, is it? Oh my God, no, it's 1%. So 1%. Okay, so if your group comprises only 1% of the total population of the city, how much more diminished are your dating prospects? Okay, because if you only you've decided to only find a man or a woman from that particular dating pool. All right, so it just impacts a person in every department of life. Okay, that was just one example, the dating thing, but it impacts them in every department. And a homogenous society would be like, they've done studies, all right? The stats, we have the stats to prove it. People are generally happier and safer. And it just, there's less fear, less stress. Okay, there's more trust. The more homogenous the society is, all right? So, yeah. And it's natural for each of the group to look after their own interests, of course. Hence why multiculturalism, hence why the melting pot is a bullshit idea. It's against nature.
Either have to have a society where everybody gets to play by those rules and everybody could be pro what they are, or everybody is assimilated and we're all Americans. And that's why I say it's detrimental, is that if Jewish people are Jewish first, not of, by, and for America, but of, by, and for the Jewish nation, this is problematic when they're in positions of power, because are they looking out for all of us, or are they looking out for themselves first? And when you look at the Israel policy, that's where people start to say, I think you're looking out for your...
On a collective level, statistically, in the aggregate, they're looking out more for Israel than they are America. I mean, we have the receipts for this. Okay, statistically, that's the case, so...
Selves first. I think you're biased. And unfortunately, you're using the public purse and American soldiers to fight your own battles. And that's the problem. It's not, I don't have hatred for them. I don't have a problem with them in themselves or even what they do. It's just that with our system, that doesn't work.
You know what I would say to that as well? It's
like no intelligent critic of this, of the JQ, actually hates anybody. Necessarily, the ones that do are toxic people. I think they do. They're like the intelligent ones. They say, "Listen, I get it, what they're doing," like he's saying now, but it doesn't suit my country. It doesn't suit my country. Stop fucking doing it. But I understand why you're doing it. All right, but hey, it doesn't suit me. It's like a guy who's trying to steal your girl, right? Because you got the hottest girl in town, so everybody wants her. You should go and have a conversation with him, like a man to man, and say, look, I get it, but stop doing it. I would do the same, but stop it, because I'm going to react. All right, so that's all it is. I mean, we understand, we're all men, The driving, the one thing that motivates men to do anything at all, to get a job, to improve themselves, to get jacked, on and on, is because it's going to lead to more sexual opportunities with more higher and higher quality women. So as a man, that every other man will want, not every, but the ones who are inclined that way, would be, would have a tendency to want to steal your girl, all right? But you go and tell them, look, I know what you're doing. We both know, we're men, okay? We get it. And you don't even have to say it overtly. There's a subconscious knowing, it's a known thing that, okay, of course, everyone would want a woman like this, okay? She's my girl at the moment, but I bet that you wouldn't mind if she was your girlfriend. But I'm just saying, that ain't going to happen. I'm not going to let you take her. So this is the same thing as when you're defending the interests of your own nation. Like, for instance, America first, in principle anyway, because Trump... He kind of says it, but he doesn't always do it. So it's like, okay, we know that you care about the state of Israel, as I, as a Greek, dual citizen of Greece and Australia, Greek-Australian person. If Greece was in a similar situation that Israel is in, Probably the Greeks would be the Greek Americans or Greek Australians. Probably most of us would be, Greece firsters. Okay, we would be Greece first, Australia second, or Greece first, America second, or whatever, wherever we happen to live in the world, right? So we get why you're doing it. It's just, please understand that we got to defend our girl. Okay, you can do your thing, but we are obliged to create some roadblocks. Say, no, you can do it a little bit, but not to the point where you're going to be sending young boys to Iraq and stuff and getting like hundreds of thousands of people killed just because you're worried that some boogeyman in the Middle East is going to destroy Israel. Like, they're constantly living in it. Like, they're in permanent existential threat mode. Okay, and it's like the things they do a little bit too paranoid sometimes, and they go over the top with their, the idea is more or less preemptive, like preemptively strike certain Middle Eastern countries just in case, before they get the opportunity to take Israel out first. So that's this constant tug of war with that mentality, right? Anyway, we could analyze that specific element in a separate video, but that's all for now.
If they use the American soldiers in their advantage and all that other stuff. Okay. Who negotiated that deal? Some president negotiated that deal. Someone said yes to it. Right?
Yeah, he's saying there have to be Gentile traders to agree to it. Yeah, and I agree.
Right? When they say, well, let me tell you, that person is afraid to platform this guy because he's afraid his donors are going to go and do this. And it's Israel's fault. No, it's not. It's the guy who runs the... It's not Israel's fault. What are you talking about? This guy sends me a message. AIPAC. I got a text. Not a text. What do you call it in the X? A DM I get from AIPAC. Okay? Hey, we'd like you to come to Israel. We'd like to invite you. I'm sure many people get that message, right? They send it. I said, I'm going to come with my pastor. I don't want you to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it. I want to bring my crew because I want to go see Jerusalem. You're not going to see me putting the what do they call it? The kippah. I'm not going to put that on. But guess what? I respect the culture, and I want to go to Gaza, and I would ask for some idea of protection, that if we can go to Gaza, show it to her. I want to see this stuff. I want to go with my pastor. First time around, I'm not going to take my kids. Maybe the second, third time, I'll take my kids. But to me, I don't put the onus on, like when a guy's like, that guy has slept with so many people, this, and the girl said yes. No, but you don't understand. He's a man whore. But the girl said yes.
If you enjoy the content of this channel, then there's a good chance you'll also like my fantasy book, Lifting the Curse Volume 1, Guardian of the Magic. Set in the modern day, it's full of action, fantasy, and page-turning conspiracy thriller. It even has numerous references to real-life geopolitical events and conspiracy theories, including a somewhat prophetic mention of the current 2025 Iran-Israel conflict.
So is it Israel or is it the girl? Do you understand what point I'm trying to make here?
Absolutely.
So to me, it's kind of like, I mean, look, if you said Israel over Muslims, right? Which of the two do you think has been a bigger net positive to America?
Oh, well, it has to be Israel, absolutely.
Okay, so a part about that part.
But, in terms of, I wouldn't say net positive. I would say in terms of raw, maybe like gross positive. Because they've had a lot of contributions culturally and even, in terms of art, literature, music, also scientifically.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to say on that because I also think that there's quite a bit of a detriment. I think that the melting pot comes from the Jewish community.
What do you mean by that?
The idea of the melting pot, that comes from a Jewish playwright. Because Jewish people come to America.
Yeah, that's the thing. They pushed the melting pot idea, the multiculturalism experiment that I was describing before, that what I witnessed in Melbourne compared to what I saw in Athens, Greece, because I did my high school years in Athens, Greece. I'd done primary school in Melbourne, then high school in Athens, Greece, which was a heavily homogenous society at the time, at least. And then I go back to Melbourne at 21 years old, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Why did I come back to this place? How are these people living like this? Like thousands of different races trying to pretend they're Australian. Who are you trying to kid? And like I said before, like they organically self-ghettoized anyway. So you can't run away from the DNA, from the reality of the in-group preference of the tribe. Okay, so how much nicer would it be if the entire city of 5 million people was just whatever, one ethnic group or a few, a couple, but not like whatever. Like in Melbourne, it's like literally like close to 200 or something. There's like over 100 easily. I saw there's some list somewhere. I saw it once. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know some of the names. I'm like, what? Thinking, how did this even work? No wonder they say that it's the most successful multicultural society. Because in a way, you kind of admire it. You're like, how do they pull this off? This entire thing of a billion races trying to live together, and they've somehow convinced them that they're all Australian. Anyway. Yeah, but multiculturalism doesn't work, and this melting pot idea is right. It was specifically, I mean, the word, the phrase melting pot was invented by that Jewish playwright. Don't remember his name, but it was like about 100 years ago, like in the 1920s, around there. And through the mass media and so on, it was promoted and promoted and promoted, and eventually 30, 40 years later, America opened up their gates to everyone and anyone.
Yeah.
And like all immigrants, they say, well, we want America to be more welcoming. So they start to spin up these ideas that, well, America was never this country of white Christians. It's always been a melting pot for all immigrants. They want the country.
No, that's not true. It hasn't always been a melting pot. It was very specifically founded by straight white European men, specifically British men. They were like, British, English, British background, Irish, whatever, British background. The men who drafted the Constitution is what I'm saying. So, of course, it's just the creature is always, the creation is always going to take on the character of the creator, okay? Like I'm a musician, not a working musician, but I've been playing guitar since 17 years old, and I've written many songs and so on, and every creator is distinct. You hear something and you're like, okay, that was written by that guy. It's unmistakably from him, playing style or composition style. So naturally, this thing that ended up becoming a constitution and this amazing experiment called the United States would have very much a European flavor, and specifically a British flavor. It was like they took, the Magna Carta thing to the next level, okay, with the US Constitution, but it wasn't very far removed. It was just a refinement of it. So it's not exactly this type, so they laid out a foundation, a template for society that would not necessarily be compatible with other groups, other nations, other ethnicities that are very far removed from a European mindset and behavior.
Because that makes it more comfortable for them. It makes it more tolerant for them. But this has also made us more open and tolerant for Muslims, for example.
Yeah. See, this massive Jewish push for more openness and multiculturalism eventually has backfired now because it let in the Muslims also, which are turning against them.
We're bringing, who's been the biggest driver of like the Hart-Celler 65 Immigration Act? It was like the SPLC, which is run by Jewish lawyers. And so they're major drivers of mass migration. They're also major drivers of the pro-Israel politics, like the Iraq War. It was many Jewish journalists and
so many of the NGOs that are bringing in the migrants, the illegals, I would say, of military-aged men into Europe every single time,
pundits and advocates.
Sure.
So a point being is like when you calculate on net, and I agree with you, like I think there are a lot of people that are critical of Israel that are reluctant to acknowledge the good that Jews do. And I think that Jews they're brilliant. Many of them are brilliant.
So what I'm saying...
Oh, they are. Credit where credit's due. They're brilliant. Like kind of like how the Japanese are, something like that. Yeah, they are. But I just don't like it when they feel like they're entitled to send the young American boys to die in Iraq to protect them from all those perceived or real enemies that they have there.
In net positive, I'm talking jobs, economy. How often you hear about crime, what they do. Like if you have a choice between living in a city in Minnesota, Dearborn, and living in, I don't know what's the biggest city. What's the city that, Boca Raton, let's just say, right? If you have a choice between raising your family, between Dearborn and Boca Raton, where do you choose?
Boca Raton,
okay,
of course,
so the point is like, they go to a place, and by the way, to me, if that was Muslims, guess what? I would say Muslims. But statistically, wherever they live, it's safer, things are nicer, things get better.
I agree.
And that is...
I gotta say, I love statistics. I just love statistics. It's a very masculine way of viewing the world, like just pure numbers and generalities, aggregate patterns and so on. Isn't it glorious? A glorious way to understand the world and patterns and trends.
One part to measure where they're at. Now, do I see them overly aggressive? Do I see them the type that are going to use politicians and buy them like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people are saying? 100%. Do I see them, they're going to be there in everyone's DM and email saying, hey, we'd love to support you. We'd love to bring you to Israel and, doing all that stuff? It's obvious. I'm seeing it myself, okay? Do I look at that and shame them and say, oh,
they even sent him an invitation for him to go to the Wailing Wall.
You shame on, I look at that and say, no, I wish Armenians would do that. I've never gotten an invitation from Prime Minister of Armenia. He should probably send me an invite to go there, right? It's not a bad idea to come and show the country. I'm Armenian, I'm a Syrian. Syrians don't have a country. It's probably a good idea. You don't see that. You wish others would do that. So
yeah, but other countries, Israel's very unique in the sense that other countries are not in that situation, in a similar situation. I mean, all countries have their problems, their fair share of problems, but the problems of the state of Israel are unique. Hence, that's why the behavior of the Jewish diaspora Jews also is unique, and that it also, it creates a lot of backlash at times. Okay, because Armenia is not in a situation where it's constantly under threat by its neighbors and so on, at least not in the way that Israel is. So you do what you got to do to survive, but it's just, I'm telling you, man, it's like I said before, I'll say it again, it's like it's not compatible. Like, what's good for you is not good for the host nation. So when enough people start seeing that's what's going on, they're gonna push back, and eventually they turn against you, and that's why you have gotten expulsions and so on. They attribute it to whatever, some nebulous BS. They never attribute it to the actual factors. But from our side, okay, see, you got to ask. It's like women or feminists, okay, when they don't want to accept accountability, and instead of actually listening to what the male point of view is, it's like, no, my dear, it's this, and that. That's why men are, walking away from dating or whatever the latest complaint is from women. And we tell them openly, like in articles, on podcasts, again and again, non-stop. Like, it's easily Googleable. You can find it. There's millions of sources, right? And yet you see in their girly magazines and websites or whatever, the feminist publications, they're always writing articles and making up, or like on their own podcasts that are like fem-centric. They're making stuff up out of thin air. It's like, but did you ever look at what the male side is actually saying? Like, why we're actually doing what we're doing? No, they're doing it because they just hate women, or So this is how this anti-Semitism thing is as well. Like, again and again throughout history, logical reasons have been given, and the major one is like because they pushed communism. They practically invented it, and they pushed it more than any other group in the aggregate. Okay, maybe not so much now, because there's a lot of really good right-wing Jews as well. So, bravo to them. But and they're genuine. Like actual, like you can tell some of them. I mean, I'm really good at reading people. So some of them you can tell that they actually really they care about the West for real. So that's good. But they have such a history, such like a tainted history of like being behind all these communist revolutionary movements. And there's no other group that's done it to that extent. All right, so that one thing alone, with this push for communism, you're like, really, you're gonna gaslight me and say that's anti-Semitism? But I just told you, you're constantly pushing communism. So, are we not? Am I not supposed to? Are we not supposed to complain about that? All right, stop pushing communism. That's easy fix.
Me, as much as when I go into that. By the way, I'll give you one other side that Israel's going to be like, yeah. This other side to me is I actually do believe they leverage Mossad to get intel. I actually do believe they use blackmail. I actually do believe they do that. So
yeah,
so
I mean, Mossad is like the world champion of blackmail. Everyone knows that.
There's nothing going on with Epstein. No. Michael Wolff did a podcast with him 2 months ago. And when he was at Epstein's house, the 100 hours of recording that he has with him, I said, how many times was Ehud Barak there? Am I saying his name correctly? Barak.
Ehud Barak.
He said he was there many times. He saw Bill Gates there many times. Why would the former prime minister visit the guy 30-something times? Just because the conversation is great? Yeah. That's a little bit suspect, right? So to me, I'll go there, but I'll go the other end. So what I'm trying to do, like if you're wondering what my role is here, okay? My role is I want to continue talking to you. I want us to do many.
All right, so that's he's going into some another tangent now, but that was basically the bit about the Israel and Jewish thing. So so the JQ basically it's been going on ever since the time of Jesus, basically, and I know it's controversial it's pretty much as controversial to say this as it is to say the sky is blue, but fuck, we live in a time where saying the truth is a revolutionary act. So I'm going to say the sky is blue now. I'll throw caution to the wind and say that it's true, what they say in the Bible about the fact that because they decided and said, look, we want to crucify him. And Pontius Pilate said, but look, I really can't find anything crucifiable. It's not a crucifiable offense here. So just give the guy a break. There's some other worse criminals here that, should get the death penalty. No. Okay. It's like, this is not on me. You're the one who wants it. You're the ones who want it. And they said, yeah, okay. Do it, and let the sin, let the bad karma, let's say. Okay, so I'm updating it for modern times using the karma concept. All right, so they said, let the bad karma go on to our descendants. I believe this is a fact, these words were actually spoken. All this stuff. I mean, no one could have. It's inconceivable. I'm not religious necessarily. I'm Christian on paper, but I'm not necessarily like a Bible bashing Christian. But it's not conceivable by an intelligent, logical human mind to think that somebody completely made this entire story up. Okay, because it's too congruent. Okay, it makes too much sense. You look at it and you're like, well, this sounds like something that actually happened that people witnessed and wrote down. So that happened. Okay, those words were exchanged. They said that. They thought that. Because they wanted to get rid of him because he was problematic. They thought he was going to be like their like a King David 2.0. They weren't ready to understand at the time. Mankind, and especially the Jews, were not ready for the concept of like a spiritual king. They thought, well, you're a king, you're going to save us. They thought he was going to be like some Alexander the Great type of figure, slash David, King David, right? But it turned out not being the case, so they couldn't accept it. It was like too much too soon. Even the Christians, like Christianity took 400 or 500 years to catch on. Okay, so it was a radical concept. So they reacted negatively against it, and they killed him, or they advocated for his crucifixion. And they said clearly, okay, let's let our descendants take the bad karma. And look at what happened in the subsequent 2,000 years to the Jews. Okay, so it's a very unique group. Okay, and they've gone through a lot of shit because of that, because of what they did, and the fact that they said let our descendants take the burden, the karmic burden, which they did. So now they're carrying all this trauma from the endless pogroms and this and that, and they behave in a way that not many other groups do, or practically nobody else does. It's almost like they're expecting that at any minute now there's going to be a Fourth Reich, and we got to try to cancel and censor everyone, and just to make doubly sure that this never happens again. You hear that mantra on and on, never again. You're constantly hearing that never again phrase, all right? Which has to do with, never again, making sure that something like the Holocaust never happens again, something like that, right? Now, like I keep repeating again and again in this video, I do, and I'm not just saying it, to cover, to protect myself or whatever. I really believe this. Look at me. Read my body language. I'm saying I mean it. I understand why they would be doing this. That's why I went through the whole story of how they ended up getting this bad racial karma. this collective bad karma from 2,000 years ago, and then it's it's been like a monkey on their back till now. So I understand their behavior because they've been traumatized. Because we've been traumatized. We Greeks have got a lot of racial trauma from the Turks, from the Ottoman, from the 400-year Ottoman occupation. So it would be like that 10x, okay, 100x with the Jews. So I partially get it. Other people have gone through it as well, other races, but the Jews have. No one has had it that bad in that particular instance, and but we know why, because when they did what they did, it's like, okay, you asked for it. This was the Logos came down and incarnated, or not incarnated, or at least indwelt, because he wasn't the Logos from the second he was born. It was like for those 3 years, 30 to 33. So God is merciful, but God can be pretty severe sometimes in his punishment if you continually turn your back on him despite the endless miracles and signs and so on, all right? So it's like, okay, you wanted the karma? All right, so then your descendants got the karma, the bad karma, and they did, and that's why all those bad things happened to them till now. But of course, that's going to give them a very unique outlook that no other tribe, no other ethnic group has, which is to say this paranoia of everyone potentially turning on them. So that's why they're constantly trying to, they're always trying to make doubly sure that wherever they are, they never allow the dominant race, the host race. But wherever they might be, they're always trying to make sure that they get into positions, into high government positions and so on, highly influential positions, where they can not necessarily take over and control and usurp the country, but at least have enough leverage and be powerful enough to actually be able to negotiate their safety, or to at least be able to prevent a total annihilation if it ever came to that. Okay, if everyone started noticing it and then suddenly the entire host nation turned against them, they'll be like, wait a minute, we're in these top key positions where we can make that not happen. So that's why they're constantly, you see them wherever they're whatever country they're in, they seem to be pushing for getting these really top political positions and so on, with the banking as well. But I don't want to get into the banking conversation because this video will never end if I start on that. But that's basically their MO. And like I said, I have not gone through this. I'm not Jewish. I have a little bit of an idea, but I haven't got a full idea. Nobody does, unless you're actually one of them. But I'm just trying to look at my own example of my collective racial trauma from the Turks, and the way Greeks talk about the Ottoman occupation and so on. And it's almost like it's the same thing. It's like the same program. We're behaving and saying exactly the same stuff, that Jews would be saying when they're talking about the Holocaust or whatever similar extermination / pogrom, whatever. It's just the villain changes, but it's the same script, right? Because it's a trauma response. It's just that they've had it much worse, and they've had it everywhere. We've had it once with the Ottomans. With the Jews, it's pretty much been the standard thing for them for 2,000 years. So that is not normal. I'm not saying it in a degrading way. I'm saying that's not normal for a group to go through something like that, and actually still come out the other side. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of work. So, of course, that has made them behave in a particular way now, okay? And they think that doing certain things, looking after their interests, Israel first, what's good for the Jews, that type of thing, has become their way of life, okay? They live by that code, all right? Because they've trained themselves, they've understood that, they've learned it through experience. It's like, well, if we don't look after ourselves, we can't rely on anyone else, because these goyim, they can turn against us. These Gentiles can turn against us at any moment. That's what. It's just that is baked into them, into their DNA, very strongly, right? So that's what's going on here, and that's why they feel this need to rise up to these really high political positions and other positions of power, and try to take the fake news media as much as they can, own as much of the fake news as they can, so that they can sway the narrative as much as possible to their favor. Because if they didn't, imagine if the fake news was owned by people who are hostile to Jews. It could have just whipped up this anti-Jewish propaganda, and before you know it, within a decade, the entire country turns against them. So that's they're constantly trying to figure out ways of preventing something like Germany in 1933 from happening again, and so on. It's not that they didn't do the same thing before that, because they always were pushing to try to have influence, because they always felt that they were weak, because they didn't have their own country until 1948. But anyway, in any event, the point is that what I'm trying to explain here is that it's like the intelligent critics of this thing, of the JQ, let's call it, we know, we understand. It's like, okay, yes, I get it. If I was in your position, I would do the same thing. However, if you were in my position, you, the person who would call this entire video anti-Semitic, you would also do what I'm doing now, or what I would do, because it's like, well, I'm not going to let this group of people who put their own country first, but who also are dual citizens. Okay, they also have citizenship in my country. I'm not going to let them use the resources, the manpower, the money, the purse, like Fuentes said before, of my country to further their own military, expansionist military ends, or whatever they're wanting to do in Israel. That's just, it's morally wrong, it's unfair. It borders on being criminal sometimes, depending on the situation. Okay, I mean, with the lies they said about the WMDs in Iraq, that was straight criminal, okay, doing that. And it was, I later found out, quite recently, about a year ago, I didn't know that before, that Netanyahu himself was primarily responsible for lying about Saddam having weapons, WMDs, right? So why would he do that? Doesn't he care that all these young Gentile men from America are going to die? Clearly not. Okay, so you see stuff like that and you're like, wait, yeah, no, my country would be better off if it was just European immigrants, all right, Christians. This is what we're saying here. I mean, because that's a receipt. We have the receipts. The guy lied about it, and it was the main thing that convinced people to go and fight that war, the WMDs, the lie about the WMDs. So this has been repeated many times, but that's like one of the most egregious examples. And that's not a small thing, okay? You could say, oh yeah, there's so many other groups have their thing, there's an Italian mafia and whatever. Yeah, okay, there is. But did they ever cause carnage at that level. Okay, how many people died in the Iraq War? All right. Father Bush had started it, and then George W. went in again, based on the lie of the WMDs. So, and Netanyahu was behind that. I mean, I'm not saying he was the mastermind of it, but he was. I mean, all roads lead to Netanyahu. You know, like a real life Darth Sidious or something. So, why would we? Okay, why are we not allowed? So let's say if there was a Japanese equivalent to AIPAC, and there was a Japanese Prime Minister equivalent to Benjamin Netanyahu, right? And he said he lied about WMDs, and then hundreds of thousands of Americans went and died in the war, and then many more Middle Easterners got killed. Okay, Iraqis. Wouldn't it be acceptable to criticize that hypothetical Japanese Prime Minister? All right, so now that we do it with Netanyahu, why is that anti-Semitic? Would the alternative case that I described before, would that be anti-Japanese? I'm sure that if the Japanese were doing the things that the international Jews do, they probably also would have invented this anti-Japanese-ism buzzword, Orwellian buzzword, okay, to gaslight the fuck out of us, so they can just be allowed to continue unabated to do whatever the hell they wanted. So, no, it's not going to stand anymore, because with the internet, people have woken up now. All right, but yeah, but it's not hatred. It's just, I mean, does Netanyahu and the other dual citizen, you know, dual Israeli-American citizen, do they hate the non-Jews who are going to die in the endless wars? We could make a case for that. So it's like, who hates who, really? All right, so don't tell us that just because we're pointing these crimes out that we're anti. You're the one who's anti to begin with, because you're doing the crime, and the person is just coming out and saying, look, Prime Minister of Israel lied about WMDs, and that was the main reason, you know, that's the main, it was the linchpin, you know, it was what the war is based on, you know. People eventually were convinced to go to support that war, based on that lie. So who's the bad guy here? The guy who does that and gets over 1 million people killed, you know, on both sides, I'm including the total death toll, or the person pointing it out? Who's really the bad guy? Okay, I mean, that's a whole lot of anti-whiteism on Netanyahu's side, I would say. So anyway, yeah, I just, like, I always make a point in my videos and my social media posts and stuff, really hammer it home to explain to people that it's not hatred. It's just, we're just calling out a behavior that is very much against our interests, and it causes wars and so on. I mean, you know, you constantly get hit. Well, oh, the anti-Semitic tropes, this and that. What trope? This happened. Netanyahu actually did this. We have receipts. There's a video of him saying it. Okay, all the stuff is. I mean, we have receipts. You can find it on the internet. It's not. We're not just accusing somebody just because he's Jewish. We're just saying that's what he did, and that his action caused 1 million plus deaths. Okay, I'm not saying he was the only person in the world that orchestrated that war. Okay, but his testimony in the UN, I believe, was it in America, in the UN headquarters in New York, if I'm not mistaken, where he said that. He said, "I have no doubt that there are. It is undeniable that there are weapons of mass destruction." I was shocked when I saw that. I couldn't believe it, because for the longest time I did not know that it was him. who was behind that lie. I'm like, oh man, this guy's Darth Sidious, or whatever. One of the handful of 4 or 5 people in the world who are actual, like the real life Sith Lords, okay? He's one of them. He's one of the top ones. So him, Father Bush, people like that. So why can't we call it out? I mean, obviously we're living in a society that's like being taken over by a international criminal mafia. A big part of it is the Jewish mafia, but not only. I'm not saying it's only them, but that's a very important component that stands out a lot of the time, and people tend to focus on them more than the other ones. But there are other groups, but that is a big component of it. And we're living under this international gang of psychopaths, this mafia that's infiltrated top positions and on and on. And you speak out against it, and then you're the bad guy for doing so. It's like, pal, you just made this horrendous lie that got 1 million plus people killed. How the hell am I the bad guy for just plainly stating it and offering 100% accurate receipts? It's like you're on record, you're on camera saying it. And then we saw what happened. We saw the aftermath of the war. Okay? So how can it be hateful to say any of this? So fuck the people who complain about us simply pointing these things out. What are we going to do? Oh, I should just lay down and die. All right? Is that what you want? Good luck. Good luck if you're waiting for that to happen. All right, so hope you enjoyed this. Some of you maybe didn't, but I'm sure this is going to end up being watched by the people who are meant to see it. If you enjoyed it, you think you got something out of it, send it to your friend you think might benefit. Also, of course, subscribe, comment underneath. Be respectable, of course, please. Find me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, because there's more where this came from. I express my thoughts freely on that amazing platform. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.